Hello, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, I wanted to go ahead and talk about why the gaming industry insiders are saying cutting-edge graphics cost too much for AAA games. I'm not sure how they managed to suddenly stumble across this magical piece of information that obviously no one could have possibly predicted. But here we are. And this article goes on to talk about, the games that people are actually playing and what they're not playing. And for example, this says former Square Enix executive Jacob Novak noted to the New York Times, it's very clear that high fidelity visuals are only moving the needle for a vocal class of gamers in their 40s and 50s. I haven't met those guys, but okay. But what does my 7-year-old son play? Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite. Yes, there are absolutely some people out there who want a game that is going to melt their computer, that is going to make their video card work its absolute hardest and make them feel like what they're seeing on their screen is absolutely real, that it's the same as going outside. However, I think a lot of those people also are probably into VR because that's what they want. They want that feeling that what they're seeing is real. The majority of gamers can't afford the hardware that is required for that. Getting a new video card in your PC is expensive. It costs about as much as a good PC used to cost back when I was a teenager or a young adult, somewhere in that range. Spending $2,000 on a PC was a lot back once upon a time. And yeah, you can get pretty good graphics on a PlayStation or an Xbox, but even those have their limits for obvious reasons. You end up with frame rate caps. You end up with all sorts of issues because of the fact that they're built to a lower price so that they provide a lower bar of entry for people to get into gaming. That is always been their direction. I'm just saying that in regards to trying to pump up the graphics to the absolute most, there's no way that you are going to get a broad enough player base to play those games. And then, of course, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, whatever, have their own issues in regards to their compatibility with older games and the stuff that they can do. It's almost not worth buying new consoles, which, considering the PS6 and the new Xbox and the idea of the new Xbox has been released is insane to me. These console generations seem to be getting shorter and shorter. However, back on topic. But of course, games have to be playable by the majority of people. So making these high fidelity games, these photorealistic games, costs a lot of money. When I mentioned talking about this article, Sheep said to me he knew this was the direction they were going as soon as they started hiring real actors to do mocap and stuff. Because obviously hiring a real actor costs more money. Doing the mocap costs more money. And then when you add to the fact that many times while they're hiring these real actors, they then go back and instead of using the actual actor's face, so you're paying extra on top of everything while laying off people left and right in a longer development phase than ever, and then wondering why your games cost too much to actually make any money when they finally come out. And even worse, you're including things that people don't actually want to play. Your writing has gone to shit because you're spending so much time on programming and looks that you don't actually think about the content of the game. And we've talked about it before. A game with really good gameplay can get by without good graphics and can get by without a great story. A great story can get by without great graphics. It has to have reasonably good gameplay. Bad graphics can survive as long as they have a good story or good gameplay, or preferably both. Graphics of the three pieces of the equation really aren't the most important one. People will focus a shit ton more on gameplay and story than they will on graphics. Those two things can make up for whatever graphics you put into a game. Top it off with the fact that if your graphics are too resource intensive and then you don't optimize correctly for the game and people can't play your gameplay and they can't see the graphics because God knows things barely move, and they can't experience your story because the game keeps crashing, why are they going to bother? Of course, this article seems to think that AI will fix a lot of these problems. Rami Ismail, co-founder of development studios Vamblier, known for its titles including Nuclear Throne and Luftrausers, remarked the idea that there will be content from AI before we figure out how it works and where it will source data from is really hard. I don't know how you're going to get the content from it if you don't know how it works, but that's beside the point. Ramey continues, how can we as an industry make shorter games with worse graphics made with people who are paid well to work less? If we can, there might be short-term hope. Otherwise, I think the slow strangulation of the games industry is ongoing. Now, I have to severely disagree with what he's saying here. You do need to make games, not necessarily with worse graphics, but with graphics that aren't photorealistic. You have to find other stylized ways to make these games. And that right there might be a huge problem with what's going on in AAA gaming. They focus so much on the graphics, not because it's what we want, but because they don't have the imagination to imagine in any other style. They don't have the ability to picture these things in some other way other than what it looks like in reality. So in order to best meet what they think will be fun, amazing, or whatever, they have to use photorealism. Or they have to use these high fidelity graphics that they've been trying to put out because it just doesn't make sense to them to try to use anything else. So many other games use stylized graphics in a way that actually looks amazing, but doesn't look real. It doesn't have to look real to be good. But for some reason, somehow that became a AAA standard. Being the game with the most amazing, most realistic looking graphics has become a AAA standard, leaving the more stylized games, the games with more whimsical looks or something that doesn't require the same hardware and software price, are left to AA and indie studios who can't afford the stuff that they need in order to do those high fidelity AAA graphics. Look at Sandfall Studios. They're making Expedition 33. Those are not photorealistic graphics, but I think they're gorgeous. Yes, there is motion capture in their game, but at the same time, it has a style, it has a look. It obviously doesn't look real, but it looks fun. It looks like a fun game that was made in a budget that isn't bordering into the fucking billions. As we move on and AAA studios start spending more and more in an absolutely ridiculous, drunken way. Instead, I'm sure it's probably got a much smaller, much more reasonable budget put together by a smaller group of people that I think will be fantastic. And there are so many other AA and independent studio games that look fantastic, that actually do new things, that actually do interesting things. You have people out there using stop motion to create their game. And while I don't think that quite works for gaming, I do think it can be cool. You have Scarlet Deer Inn. The gal there is making her game using embroidery, actually embroidering different movements for each of the characters and hand-painted backgrounds. Things that require a different type of skill, but at the same time don't tax the hardware as much as making a game look as real as possible. AAA games and people in the gaming sphere seem to have completely lost the idea that things should have an artistic variety. They have lost their artistic edge. They've lost their creativity. And because of that, yes, we've been having games that might look cool when they're showing us the game trailer, or when they're showing us the cutscenes, or when they're showing a fake version at a fucking game convention that looks amazing, and then we get it and it crashes the computer every 10 minutes. I'm looking at you, Cyberpunk 2077. The fact that that hasn't quite stopped being a thing, that we all still look at a trailer and think, is this really what this game is going to look like? Instead of giving us something they know will run on what we own, they have made us distrustful of them. And not just of them, but of gaming journalists especially, because they were lying for them. Because they lied and continue to lie on their behalf to keep themselves in the industry. Well, the Sweet Baby Inc. thing was definitely an eye-opening moment for many gamers. I think that what happened with Cyberpunk 2077 on its release, I think that really was the beginning of a turning point for everything. People already were going down the road of not trusting, but when that came out so scuffed, but all of the reviews were so glowing, and they never mentioned the fact that they only had so much limited access until after it came out. And people were angry at them and they wanted to get the heat off their back. So they obviously threw it back on the game devs. To me, it's like, how can you blame us for being mad at you when you willfully lied to us? You willfully went out of your way to tell us these lies because it most benefited you. So no, I don't think that generative AI or anything like that will save gaming. And it's certainly not going to save AAA gaming. And as I've said before, AAA gaming dying does not end gaming. Now, AAA game studios want us to think that, and I think many journos probably want us to think that because, let's face it, the AAA studios have the money to pay them for ridiculous articles like yesterday's, where I swear that Times article was nothing more than a list of advertising spots that people bought and that game developers bought. They bought the spot, they sent the description, and Times printed it. I'm sure, I am almost dead convinced that that is what happened with that. They'd never admit it, but let's face it, you can't trust a journalist. Do games need to be shorter? Not in my opinion. I like longer games. Could the industry use shorter games? Yes, the industry could use shorter games because there are a lot of people who aren't like me, who don't like to spend hundreds to thousands of hours in the same game. They want something short, simple that they can complete. But at the same time, they don't want to spend $70 for that same game. Making a shorter game that costs less, that have lower system requirements, but still have a good story and gameplay is going to make so many people happy. That kind of thing, it drives me crazy because it's really so easy to make gamers happy. Or at least some subsection of gamers. You're never going to make every gamer happy. No matter how amazing your game is, there's going to be some group that is unhappy with the game you made for whatever godforsaken reason they choose. Because in the end, people are selfish. And if it's not made for them, they don't understand how anybody could like it and they want to bitch about it. The number of people upset about Baldur's Gate 3 being a turn-based game always irritated me. And they genuinely felt like they deserved for the game to not be turn-based because they wanted to play it. It's no different than people who think that FromSoft games should have easy modes because they want to play them and all of that. And we got to get over that. If a game's not made for you, it's not made for you. And instead of trying to force people to make it for you, go find a game that is made for you. There is no slow strangulation of the games industry. There is I don't know that you would call it a recession of the games industry. There's a bubble bursting here that was put into place by people who had too much money and not enough sense. There are layoffs going on because, yes, the higher-ups, the CEOs and executives in the companies made the bad decisions, hired the wrong people, got rid of the wrong people at the wrong time, have fired well-paid talent and replaced them with less expensive talent because spreadsheets. But yeah, cutting-edge graphics absolutely cost too much for AAA studios to make, especially when that's all they focus on. And they don't focus on games that will make them money. And they don't focus on stories that will make them money. And they don't focus on what makes them money. Graphics will make you a little bit of money, but they're not the whole thing. Never have been, never will be. You can't just give people a bad story with mediocre gameplay and pretty graphics. Not unless they have everything else that goes with it to make those graphics run buttery smooth and the story's not entirely stupid. Don't know what to tell people at that point. But what do you think? I'm sure I always get through a video like this and think, well, did I say absolutely anything that made sense? And that people come out and agree with me. So I figure I must have made sense to somebody. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. Do you have an opinion regarding graphics? What is your preferred graphical style? Do you like ones that appear real? Do you prefer comic book-like games? Do you prefer more stylistic, more cartoony? I would love to hear some opinions on that. So let me know about that down in the comments. Before I go, unfortunately, I did not have a lot of time today and I did not take any puppy pictures or videos. So I apologize for that. I will make sure I have some for you tomorrow. But before we go off, I do want to extend a huge thank you to those of you who are members here on the channel. I appreciate your support so much. They are DX Machina NZ, Emperor Doomsday, Snake Oil Sean, Schmitted, Almugo, Green-Haired Anti-Liberal, Narrator 45, Felix, Stormborn, Aramis, Corinne Ponder, Ben Henniger, John Grant, Robust Delirium, Stephen Devazano, Hollywood Guy, Mr. Drow, Gregarious, Soggy Goblin, The Black Wizards, Eric C., XM202 Wow, Nico Grin, Silver Ogre, and I do have to give a special thank you to Silver over on Ko-Fi for being so kind as to support me there. If you care to support, but you don't want to give money to YouTube, you can absolutely support me over on Ko-Fi. If you have no problems doing a membership here on YouTube, you can find that link down in the comments. You can also find a link to my Throne wish list in the event you have any interest in that. For everybody, I have to thank you for just being here, for spending your time here with me. In my opinion, that is the most valuable commodity you can possibly give me. Your views, your shares, your likes, your comments, they all go so far to supporting me that I feel like I'm pushing it when I ask for more. So that's part of why I try to keep it to once a week. Let me know your thoughts here on everything, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.